Education today, is it necessary?
My experience in the education system is that realization isn't stressed so much.
How I can utilize you for my gain is profitable in this world, and that's what you're valued on, right?
Learning is a cornerstone of life. And I think what is going to be interesting here is learning according to your nature.
The only way you can fully understand what your nature is two things. One, be around people who genuinely care about you and have an interest in you and can observe you objectively. And two, you have to experiment the hell out of everything.
These days we live body-centric or mind-centric or money-centric, right? But putting the soul first and allowing that to be the king in our lives, the one that's protecting and leading us, maybe that's a more fortunate life, no?
Before we jump into this episode, I'd love to invite you to join this candid spiritual community to hear more conversations that will help you become happier, healthier, and more healed. All I want you to do is click on that subscribe button because I love your support. I love seeing all the comments pouring through, all the love pouring through, and we're just getting started. I can't wait to go on this journey with you, whether you're a spiritual seeker or you're just curious about the topic. And we really hope that our conversations will provide you food for thought and inspiration for your own spiritual journey. So join us for honest, candid discussions about spirituality for soul's sake.
For soul's sake, for soul's sake.
Hello and welcome to another episode of For Soul's Sake, a roundtable special with my favorites, Nāma and Keli. We are speaking about education today. And before we get stuck in on a verse and all things education, is it, for example, is it right for people to not send their kids to school? Maybe we just get stuck in there.
Hot topic.
Or should I read the verse first? Let me read the verse.
Read the verse.
Let me read the verse. All right. This is from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, text number 2. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting, and it is joyfully performed. Where do we start?
That's deep.
Yeah, that's a big topic. I mean,
A lot of things packed in there.
My favourite part of that verse is that direct perception bit. It's called pratyaksha in Sanskrit.
Mm-hmm.
And in yoga wisdom, there's an understanding of jnana, which is knowledge, and then vijnana, which is realization. And something I've experienced, I don't know about you two, but my experience in the education system is that realization isn't stressed so much.
yeah.
It's like, here's the information, and then we'll have an exam and you just have to regurgitate it correctly, and then we'll mark you. But there's no system for assessing the application of that knowledge, which it might be controversial, but I'd go as far as saying perhaps knowledge isn't as valuable without application if it just remains in your head.
It gives me memories of my own educational life. I remember being at university, and I went to uni for 5 years. I did a master's program. Every day studying engineering, loved it, but it was taking over my life. After that, graduating, it was all good. All my friends were going to work, they were joining the workforce. I just felt like I spent 4 years of my life studying how to design and build a racing car, but I know absolutely jack about myself. I never spent a second or a minute in this educational institute understanding the self. And that's why I thought, I can't go into work, I barely know myself. I took up spiritual school, right? So I think, the education system today, and you said it really well, it's regurgitation over realization.
I love that.
And you're valued on how well you can regurgitate something.
I mean, until you get to the point where you're applying for, I don't know what it is for other jobs, but especially corporate jobs, then you start feeling the pressure because all these aptitude tests that they make you do, then it's applied knowledge. But you're never prepared for that. That's never kind of a skill that's taught from a young age. You're just expected to grow that somehow or the other.
Yeah, we don't prepare anyone for life actually, right?
Yeah.
And the whole meritocracy of it is very strange because it's based on, there's this kind of bias that you see where perhaps someone with more charisma but less knowledge and capability is more likely to get the job, or someone that's more attractive is more likely to get the job, or someone that has a connection with someone in the job is more likely to get the job, rather than someone that has studied and realized that.
Yeah.
I don't know how you get around that.
It's difficult, isn't it? I mean, in one sense, would a bhakti yogi, dumb it down to karma and say, well, in your karma you've got good genes and you look good, and therefore you're going to get through life a little bit easier, perhaps, in that regard. It's a double-edged sword, though, isn't it? Because those who get the silver spoon, so to say, that's a whole journey in itself to feel worthy of what you've been receiving. I know plenty of people who had been given a lot of opportunity at a young age, and then because they've been given it so easy, they have what we could maybe even understand as imposter syndrome, not feeling worthy of that. And that's a whole trip down itself. But I want to get into, you mentioned about going to university and doing 5 years, and you went to university, didn't go.
I tried, and I hated it, and I left.
I went, I hated it, but I still somehow stumbled over the line. Education today, is it necessary? Do you feel like, for example, you guys planning on having kids?
If I'm fortunate enough, yeah.
If you're fortunate enough. I've got 2.
No.
Okay. Would you recommend anyone who's having kids, or do you plan on sending your kids through the same system that you went through?
I take a lot of inspiration from like the Eastern, so within the the Vedic traditions and Vedic cultures of India. Like the schooling system was such that a school in India was traditionally called a gurukul. Guru means teacher, and it's the house of the guru essentially. And the job of the teacher was to help the student figure themselves out, their nature, their propensities. And based on that, you could guide the child for further education, or perhaps there's no need, because actually they've got all the education they need in terms of self-awareness, and then you can guide them into employing that into the world. And I find that's the really interesting thing. So it's like, it's more than just a question of would you want to send your children to a traditional schooling system. I would ask myself, do I understand what my kids need before making that formal decision and saying, you got to do this, you got to get X qualification? Because to be honest, that ruins a lot of people. I find not everyone, in my opinion, need to do like further higher education.
I was inspired by the story of Richard Branson, who is
I think I know this.
extremely dyslexic and didn't get qualifications, but became one of the most successful people in the world. And you see many people that they don't tick the boxes, but they have an entrepreneurial mindset and they have a passion to serve and to grow. But one of my best friends has been training as a doctor for 8 years and just officially passed and became a doctor.
Tom.
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 Yeah. Congratulations, Tom.
Congratulations. Yeah, wow.
And but now he has to have job interviews. Like now he has to go and can you imagine you study for 8 years, all these exams, and it's like crazy.
What a mish.
And now is the time that he has a job interview. But for him, they are going to be looking at his certification. Right? Whereas perhaps for other lines of work that isn't so much there. But what I like about Krishna is that he has a high standard but a different idea of qualification, of like what qualifies you to be God conscious. And it's not if you've got a degree or if you've got money or charisma or good looks, but it's something metaphysical. It's beyond all of that.
Sincere qualities.
Right. Which unfortunately aren't as admired,
valued,
in this
acknowledged.
day and age.
How well you understand yourself is not profitable. How I can utilize you for my gain is profitable in this world, and that's what you're valued on, right? And you kind of, it seems like the education system almost, and society I think generally is, you're just training to be a lamb in the slaughter. Lamb for slaughter, right? You're just training to become a slave, as it were. Just a glorified slave that looks really flashy and works in a tall, shiny building.
Yeah, it's a tough one because there's so many different variables here. Because I know people that have gone and sent their kids to school and they've been happy and they've been spiritual. I know people that haven't sent their kids to school and they're happy and spiritual. And converse is completely true as well. And so I think the principle that might apply is learning, which I think is imperative, whether you're an adult, child, you know, wherever you are in life. Learning is a cornerstone of life, that at every point you need to be learning something. And if not consciously, subconsciously, you're picking things up, you're learning from experience. And I think what is going to be interesting here is learning according to your nature. Because does everyone need to be informed about everything? The answer is obviously going to be no.
Yeah.
But then how does one discover their nature? Let's maybe go down that route. And also, having discovered their nature, how does one find a teacher or find a place from which they can learn? So, okay, let's start with the finding your nature part. Like, how does one understand what's their nature and what's good for their nature, what feeds their nature? Any thoughts?
Yeah, this is a big topic. This is a topic that I find really interesting, because in order for you to understand what nature is, like, I think people have to understand the self first. You can't know what you're meant to do without knowing what the dynamics of the self are.
Okay.
And so everyone has a particular psycho-physical nature. And we have particular motivations and activities we like to do. But more behind that is also the intentions we naturally gravitate towards when doing an activity. So you could see, like, what was I doing the other day? I was at work, and there was someone writing an email, right? Two people I told to write the same email to a particular senior person. One of them wrote it in a very strategic way to try and get something out of that individual. The other person wrote it so that they could be of full support to that individual. Same email about the same thing to the same person, but the intention behind that was very different. Right? It accomplished the same goal, but their motivations were very different, and they couldn't separate themselves from that motivation. Right? Some people just want to expand ideas and profit. Some people want to think very creatively about something. Some people want to instruct. Some people just feel very protective and want to lead, and we all have different propensities. But I feel in my experience that the only way you can fully understand what your nature is two things. One, be around people who genuinely care about you and have an interest in you and can observe you objectively. And two, you have to experiment the hell out of everything.
I love that.
I have so many people coming up to me sometimes and they're like, oh no, I'm like, you know, I'm not sure what I should do in my life. What do you think I should do? And I said, well, have you tried much? No. Why are you asking me the question?
Wow. Yeah, our mutual friend, all three of us, Jay Shetty, he said something that was profound in a closed group of friends, and it stuck with me so much. He said, everybody wants to thrive. Everyone wants to be at the point of thriving and succeeding and achieving, etc. But behind that, actually, before thriving comes experimentation, years of experimentation. And before that, it's just a process of thriving. And so exactly how you said it, let's focus on experiences that help us to experiment.
Yeah.
Experiences that help us and facilitate experimentation.
And going back to, I think, what Keli, you mentioned earlier is don't experiment for the sake of experiment, but always reflect. And what do I realize from that experiment? How do I feel? Am I feeling enthused? Am I feeling confident? You know, like the Vedic literature, it actually says that one naturally feels enthused and they feel silently confident when they're within their nature. And that could be an environment, people, activities. They feel like it will come to their aid and it feels almost effortless.
Yeah.
Right?
Satchidananda Swami once said, if you protect your nature will protect you.
That's nice.
If you protect your dharma, that's not nature, but if you protect your duty and you protect your, in one sense, your nature, then that will protect you.
I think my experience was never having to find my nature. I always knew I was a creative person.
Yeah.
I was a musical person. I was outgoing, all of this stuff. My problem was finding the courage to accept that. That was the difficult thing.
Yeah.
And
why? Do you mind if I ask why?
because there, with every nature, there are connotations and there are perceptions, right?
Yeah.
So for instance, we were talking about the guy in the skyscraper in the suit, but that could be so many people.
Yeah.
Like the person beneath the suit could be so different,
Yeah.
but still there are general perspectives of certain natures.
Yeah.
So I went on this quest, I guess, to like find the courage to accept, okay, I'm an artistic person, like that's okay, I can do that. But also I had this experience of kind of living like a contradiction within myself. And maybe you've experienced this of, people often say like, I feel excited and nervous, right?
Yeah.
Or taking it further, people could say, I feel happy but also sad. And so it's really interesting that within one person, we can have self-doubt and confidence. Or
Yeah.
we can have these seemingly contradictory things going on. So that led me to realize that actually we have our nature, what we can be grounded in, but within that there are different roles that we can play.
For sure.
And so that's what I'm currently experimenting with,
Yeah.
is that some moments in life ask me to be creative. Some ask me to be entrepreneurial. Some
Yeah.
ask me to be managerial, right? Some ask me to be a leader. Some ask me to be a follower and a student. But for me, it's not to confuse those roles with different natures. I'm acting out or wearing those different hats within my nature.
Yeah.
And that's where the satisfaction comes. But
For sure.
for a lot of people, it's what is my nature, trying to find it. But then for others, they know their nature, but they haven't found the courage to live it.
To live it, yeah.
And it's an interesting journey.
There's often ones like, you just made me think of something, and maybe we've all felt it to a degree, is you might know your nature, but because another type of nature or career or, and I'll get into what that is in a second, is popularized more in the world,
Yeah.
right? One feels that I need to neglect what I think is true to me because actually I feel it's boring and society thinks it's boring, and I should do what's really popularized, and battling being me versus being what's popular. I think we spoke about this in the previous podcast as well.
Yeah.
That's like the challenge that we've like, a stereotype, and I'll share this, a stereotype that, it's not restricted to, but a British Asian would get is that a lot of them are accountants, right?
Yeah, you've got to be an accountant, a
Right.
lawyer, or a failure.
Basically. And but what if you are an accountant? You're an accountant. You're really good at it, and that's what you're supposed to be doing. But because you feel it's really boring and it's not really glorified in the public eye, you start to chase something else,
Try to be a public speaker.
right? But in the process of following that, it says that when you go out of your dharma, it's actually really destructive for you. Holistically, your life just isn't in balance.
Yeah.
The universe is just is really volatile in its way. It's reacting with you. So that's also very, and that just goes on. It does take a lot of courage
Yeah.
to be you.
It's a minefield.
Yeah.
It takes courage. And I guess all three of us would hopefully, and I think we'd agree, in order to navigate that, we need maps, we need guidance.
Yeah.
And I mean, you mentioned it right at the top, Prataksha being this experience, but there's other sources of knowledge that we understand, Anuman and Shabda. If I remember correctly, Shabda is knowledge that is heard, which is, but Anuman,
It's
remind
like
me?
mental speculation.
Mental speculation. So mental speculation, a direct kind of a teacher or guidance from maybe a source of knowledge, and the final is experience. Prataksha, Numan, and Shabda. Those are the three that I remember. So those are three. Now, it seems to me more and more people are rejecting Shabda.
Yeah.
I can figure out how on my own is the narrative. From my own sense experience, from my mental speculation, I got this. I don't know. Why do I need to read that? Why do I need to learn from a guru? What's the point? So I'd like to see what you guys think about finding a suitable teacher, finding a guide. How does one even navigate? Because there's a lot of weird teachers out there. Let's be honest. There's some weirdos out there in the spiritual space. I've heard some crazy. Tell me, okay, don't mention names because this is going to get. But tell me a weird story you've heard about another guru.
I'll show you something. Jokes, yeah.
Here we go.
So today I was on the YouTube rabbit hole.
Why are you meant to be working?
Yeah. It was lunchtime. And
Good caveat.
And there was this one guru, right? And he was there, and he just the way he was giving the talk was really funny. He sits in the center, and everyone sits around him, and he's on like a revolving chair that he chooses to swing around.
Wow.
Right? So anyway, he's there, and this little kid asks him a question and says like something about, how do I deal with like my past sins and my karma? Right? And so he takes time, swings around, and he goes, yeah, just clean it. And the little kid's like, oh, okay. And he goes, yeah, I'm going to do some sort of biomeditation and I'll clean it for you, so don't worry. And I was like, and I was just watching the whole thing, and I was like, dude doesn't even care about this little kid. Absolutely. And that's one thing, he doesn't actually care about the inquiry of the child. And that's one of the things I feel like I need in a guide, in a teacher, is someone who actually cares about me and has got some compassion to want to help me out a little bit. And I guess at the same time has love for me, right? Like it's a selfless, thankless task to help someone in a bit of a muddle, confused about life, and love and care, I think, are two powerful things.
Scandalous teacher stories. Part 2 by Keli Woods.
I grew up as an atheist, and my first exposure to something overtly religious was going to a kind of like a youth club in Swansea. And so it was like we were like a bunch of lads, like 10, 11 years old, and we go to this youth club, and there would be ping pong, there'd be football, there'd be like a skate ramp, there'd be like all of this fun stuff. But before we could do any of that, we had to listen to a sermon, because the youth club was like run by these Christians, proper like Welsh Christians. And so we'd all be sat on this sofa like fidgeting around, and someone's trying to like roll a fag and stuff, and it was like ridiculous. And then we'd have this guy try and like read something from the Bible in a really like strict Welsh way. And
do a impression.
Well, I guess he'd be like, right, boys, pipe down now, have a listen to this, right, Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life, and you don't get to the Lord except through him, all right? So, oi, pipe down there. And it would be like really like, wow, okay, this is interesting.
Caught my attention.
Yeah. The Welsh accent can do that to me. But you would see that these, I don't know, for lack of a better term, preachers, you would see that they'd be speaking high words from the Bible. But then every time we left, you'd always see them like smoking a fag and having a tinny, you know, like,
oh yeah,
and just not, it's like
how could you have faith in that?
Yeah, like their character didn't really carry through, and so thus the words that they were sharing with us lacked a potency. And so that was an early realization I had, is like, as profound as any words might be from a Bible or from a Bhagavad Gita or a Torah or a Quran or a self-help book or whatever, you have to kind of perhaps distinguish between the words and the wisdom and the person that's sharing it. And sometimes it even works the other way, where the wisdom isn't that deep, or you know, there's not much content, there's not so many words, but the person is in such integrity that it changes your life, and they hardly have to say anything at all, if anything. So for me, I really try and perhaps tap more into like not intuition in a wishy-washy way, but intuition in a way where I'm trying to discriminate and like experience like a good judge of character of that person, right? And are they living what they're speaking, or is it just lip service? And so that's like a big component for me. It's like, is the person walking the talk kind of thing?
And that takes time to assess and see, and patience is a big part of finding a teacher, I think. I think
Definitely.
oftentimes we feel that I need it now, I want it now, give it to me now. Like, I want to know what everything, in essence, just tell me the essence. Like, you know, when someone like goes to a spiritual retreat, they say, oh, what was the best part? Or, you know, someone goes on any experience, what was the highlight?
Yeah.
Just give it to me in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And we've lost that because everything's on our fingertips
Mm-hmm.
with these weapons of mass distraction, with these, now I hear Apple integrating ChatGPT onto your phone. So literally all you have to do is type in one sentence and it'll finish it off for you. And you can even tell it what tone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because we're going to get to that point where it's just so snappy, everything's moving so fast. What time do we have to learn? What time do we have to patiently inquire with a level of sincerity when we can't even get a sentence out without the help of artificial intelligence? And it's going to get really crazy. And to be honest, I'm going to use some of that because it's going to save me time. But another part of that is, how am I going to learn if my mind is always thinking efficiency? And so slowing down, I just recently went away, and of all the places in the world that I've been to, lying in the ocean, looking up at the sky, being a little bit scared that a little fishy is going to have a nibble on me, was the first time I went, I think this is the first time I don't have my phone in my hand. Or I don't have a place to be. And I was like, I need this experience more often, just to be able to contemplate, what is it that I need to learn in this lifetime? What do I need to learn in this day? What do I need to learn in this year? How can I purify myself, so to say? So
The examples given of, if you took the Bhagavad Gita and you took all of the spaces away, as in the spaces between the words,
oh yeah,
none of it would make sense. Right? It's actually the spaces between the words that makes a sentence coherent. So similarly in our lives, if there's no space, very quickly the coherence is lost. And we're almost being attacked in a way by everything around us that is bombarding us and suffocating us and taking away our space effectively. And everything's becoming more claustrophobic, and every hour is accounted for, you know. And
my manager's sitting in the room, he's already accounted for the next 5 hours of what I'm going up to.
There's this whole concept around like, and this is a really interesting topic about like, when you take time off to rejuvenate. Sometimes people, what they do is they've been working really hard and they take time off, but in the time off they don't actually switch off, or they're not actually rejuvenating. And then when you come back to work, you're not actually rejuvenated, or you've come back with better balance. You're actually just as stressed as you were Friday, you know. And I find that's something I'm really trying to do. Like, one day a week, I picked a Saturday to try and switch off and do stuff that refuels me, and rejuvenates me. And that's subservient to my spiritual life. That's going to impact my working life, my relationships, my friendships, etc. And it is a spiritual activity to know how to spiritually recreate, or recreation, right? I think that's we've lost that ability.
And that's a big part of education as well, is we receive the knowledge, but then if there's no time to assimilate it, it never becomes realized. So actually it's that space that's really important, and that's why perhaps we're in this weird dichotomy or contradiction we're living in now, where we have more information than ever before, but less realization than ever before, you know.
That's that poem, no? What is it? Paradoxes of Our Time.
Right, exactly.
Paradoxes of Our Time.
that nails it on the head.
Got tall buildings but shorter tempers. That was one of them that stuck with me. It's interesting actually, like there's, I think it's within one of the other Eastern scriptures, it says there's three stages to assimilating knowledge. The first stage in Sanskrit is known as Shravanam, to hear, to just accept what is being told. Not accept, but to receive what is being told. Then the next one is called Mananam, which means to deliberate, to think about.
Meditate.
And then the third one is Nididhyasanam, which means essentially to deeply meditate on or think about what does this mean for me practically in my own life?
How is it relevant?
How is it relevant to me? What does it mean for me on the ground
What's the application?
going forward? And I think today's day and age, we just do the first one. And then kind of like, do I get it or not? I'll accept and reject basis on that basis.
Yeah. I guess. Yeah, it comes with time as well, no?
Mm.
I think every person at a given point in time, maybe this is your prompt. Maybe if you listen to this right now, maybe this is your prompt to make some time, even if it's 5 minutes, just to pause and assimilate what you're hearing in life. What are you receiving in life?
Mm.
How can you apply that rather than just go, grow. So maybe this is a nice place to end. But one thing that maybe we can close on is it speaks about in this verse the king of knowledge, the king Raja Vidya, the king of education. What's that?
The royal education.
Royal education. What?
I think with the Bhagavad Gita, it's talking about one specific topic in a lot of depth, and that's the education of the self. And knowledge which pertains to our identity, our purpose on a spiritual level, our spiritual purpose, and what is beneficial for us in terms of navigating ourselves so that our soul feels fulfilled. Those things that are beneficial for our soul's sake, that is the king of knowledge. That is the superior knowledge, because all other knowledge in this world, it's very fleeting if we look at it, right?
And a king's job is to both protect and to guide. And it's called the Atma paradigm, which is the paradigm that the soul comes first. You know, we are soul-centric. Everything else comes around that. But these days we live body-centric or mind-centric or money-centric, right? But putting the soul first and allowing that to be the king in our lives, the one that's protecting and leading us, maybe that's a more fortunate life, no?
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Check out the verse, chapter 9, text 2 of the Bhagavad Gita. Send us your thoughts. Send us your questions. Send us your comments and criticisms too. Looking forward to seeing you guys on the next episode of For Soul's Sake. Have a wonderful day, week, and hopefully see you soon. Peace out. If you love this podcast, you'll love my interview with Shivani Powell on the importance of accepting and embracing others without judgment. Check it out.
With a knife, you can kill someone. You can hurt someone. You can harm someone. You can also use that knife to chop fruits and vegetables to eat. And also, you can use that knife by a surgeon to save someone's life.
Yeah.
And so with money, it's not a bad thing. It depends how you use it and how you show it.
Yeah. Totally.
And I think that we shouldn't pass judgment on people who choose to live in a big house or who choose to buy nice things or to choose to go out, because at the end of the day, I think we believe that if you're a monk, if you're spiritual, if you're this, if you're a woman, you're a man, this is the life you should lead.